Have you ever seen a video game as a kid and be like, yeah, I want that? You know, you ask your parents for it when they go out, they bring up some random game you never heard about and likely suck. Well, I've had a similar experience to this. You see, I watched Dishband's Let's Play of Rugrats Search for Reptile back in the day, and I want a game like this on a Nintendo 64, since that was a console I was obsessed with back in the day. One time my parents thought to go do errands or something, they came back with this specimen right here. Rugrats in Paris, the movie. You only know it's a bad time when they're so back conveying what it is that they'll straight up tell you that's a movie. Search Reptile is an average platform on the PS1, so it should be interesting to see how this game gets adapted in the game form. So the first thing we see is the THQ logo, which I honestly didn't even know was around during the N64 era at all before playing this. We also see that this game was developed by Average Software, who did not make Search for Reptile. In fact, they had developed both Rugrats Royal Ransom and Mortal Kombat Mythology's Sub-Zero. I should be worried, shouldn't I? It can't be that bad after all. I'm sure the first Rugrats movie had a great time game. Oh, actually starting the game, we see an intro cutscene that introduces the game's plot. The villain of the game, Robo-Snail, has trapped some unnamed princess in a volcano, and you need a helmet in order for Reptile to stop the snail. Nothing incredible or anything, but the plot does have higher stakes than Search for Reptile, where the plot was literally just looking for puzzle pieces for Tommy's Reptile puzzle.
Where's my...
You didn't get to select the character, and I decided to play as Chucky, but it honestly doesn't matter who you pick since, spoiler alert, they all play the same. Okay, finally starting the gameplay, we started moving around in... Wait, oh no, don't tell me this game has tank controls. Yep, this video game actually has the audacity to use tank controls. The movement style is scientifically designed to be as awkward as possible to control a character in a 3D space. Now let me tell you, trying to move around like this with an N64 joystick no less is quite the experience. Oh hey look, there's a red ticket collectible I can pick up in the corner here. So let me just walk into it, then slowly turn around afterward, then continue. Oh boy, I sure am enjoying this interactive gaming experience. This was released in the year 2000. My 64 came out 4 years before this. Even Resident Evil, the series that arguably popularized this control style, had versions of the games released that supports analog control. Why would they make a game use tank controls? That's one of the worst gaming ideas I could think of. It's not like something like Croc where it's an early game of its genre, so it has some excuse, or like Resident Evil where you could argue that the awkward controls adds to the tension. The effects of this decision is that you are incredibly sluggish, which isn't helped at all by how slow you walk. It's just slow enough to really make walking anywhere a real chore. This helps you really notice the game's awful frame rate, which is really bizarre considering how confined these hub areas are. These decisions are baffling to say the least, but whatever, let's just get through this hub area and enter an actual level. Maybe that'll be more fun at least. Wait, no. Is this a minigame collection? Search for Reptile was a 3D platformer, so why'd they feel the need to make it a minigame collection? It seems so odd to make a decision like that. Were there other Rugrats games like this? Rugrats Studio Tour, also made by N-Space, says that it's separated by minigames according to the Rugrats wiki. The thing about that is a good portion of those minigames are still platforming, so it's still pretty faithful to the original in some way. Well okay, that's pretty disappointing, but is the minigame at least good? The goal of the game is to hit targets that appeal for baseball. Hit a majority of the targets and you pass. There are 3 rounds that each escalate in difficulty, the third giving you a limited amount of baseballs to use. Well, first of all, do not use the D-pad to aim. I tried and the lack of precision makes it really bad for this minigame in particular. Another thing that makes this game really hard to play is the fact that when you're on the left and the right sides of the screen, due to the perspective of your character, the cursor doesn't accurately show you where the ball is going to hit. So you need to aim slightly off, otherwise you will miss the target. There's a chance that you can hit 2 targets at once due to this, which can be pretty cool, but that's really the amount of strategy that can be applied. Not to mention the fact that the angle that you're throwing the ball isn't set when you press A, but instead when that ball is actually released, which can make this minigame a little bit awkward to play, in a way that I'm pretty sure wasn't intended. Your reward for clearing a minigame is a gold ticket, which I guess is like a store in Mario in the most vague sense. So what is the point of collecting tickets anyway? Well, in Euro Reptile Land there exists a ticket booth that you can enter to purchase things with tickets. There are a lot of small objects you can purchase with red tickets like puzzle pieces and toys, but in the middle there's the Reptile control helmet which you can buy with 16 golden tickets, and the main objective of the game. Since your goal is to collect golden tickets, so how do you get them? Well, the first most obvious method is by completing minigames. But if you beat the minigame perfectly in all 3 rounds, then on some minigames you activate a bonus round, and if you perfect that round, then you will get a second golden ticket. If you complete the game after getting the gold ticket, you will just be given a few red tickets as a prize. Are there any other methods to get gold tickets in this game? Yeah, you know those toys and puzzle pieces you can get with red tickets? Well, there are certain square panels found scattered in a few worlds, some of which represent the different puzzle piece colors. and others representing some of the viable objects. The puzzle pieces bring up a puzzle minigame, which is pretty self-explanatory, but in my experience it has a problem where sometimes the pieces are too hard to tell where they go, and you end up running out of time needing to restart the minigame. Certain toys are also used on these panels to unlock minigames, which I'll talk more about later. So how about the different areas? Well, the game is separated into 5 different worlds, each with minigames that vaguely relate to the theme of the world. To travel between worlds, there's a monorail in each world that if you enter, it brings up a map screen where you can select the world, which you have to physically walk through each time you want to change worlds. Meaning if you do a minigame that's on the opposite side of the map from the monorail, you could end up potentially walking extremely far and tediously change worlds. Also, for some reason you'll spawn to each area near the exit point, so it can be disorienting trying to figure out where to go to exit an area. There are map stations and signs in each world that show where the monorail and minigames are, but it doesn't help the issue that much. I swear it's almost like the devs were trying to make the game as slow and tedious as possible to pad up the game time. Let's get to play tank controls so movement is sluggish and collecting the red stat tickets is more cumbersome than it needs to be. Let's make the movement speed slow, the fade out slow, each minigame being 3 rounds, and making world switching as aggravating as possible since they spent more time programming the flies on a trash can than bothering programming an actually satisfying game. Not to mention that Chucky will taunt you throughout the entire process by laughing constantly, without ending. A lot. Now that I've covered all that, I will go through each world and talk about some of the minigames I played and my experiences with them. I've already talked about the baseball minigame in Reptile Land, and guess what? It's the only minigame in the area. The rest is just a ticket booth, a giant reptile statue, and a puzzle piece and a telescope square. So going on to the next world, Princess Theater. This world is supposed to have an ancient Japan theme to it, which means that the minigames mostly all relate to or contain ninjas. The first minigame is one that I actually enjoyed, which is a game that you throw Ninjastars like cookies to hit ninjas. The further away the ninja, the higher score. Some of them hold red tickets which you can collect when you hit them. It is essentially the same as the baseball game except at a higher speed, and seemingly without the cursor issue to baseball game. The only real problem I noticed was that the farthest off ninja seemed to only appear when you moved the cursor, which was odd. I enjoyed this one even if it was basic. The next minigame in this world is a whack-a-mole minigame, where moles were replaced with ninjas. Very creative, I know. Each of the 4 C buttons are tied to the 4 holes, which allows for the minigame to remain fast, and focuses more on reflexes, which leads to more fun than something like the Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz minigame, which is just awkward due to having to manually move between each hole. There were 4 different things that appear from the holes. A ninja, which gives a point, a weird silver pig looking thing that only appears once around and gives double the amount of points, a red ticket, and then actual moles, which you aren't supposed to hit since they make you lose points. Do 3 rounds and it's over. This one is one of the more satisfying games I played, and the only one I went out of my way to get the second golden ticket for. The next minigame and one of my personal favorites is Chucky Chan. This minigame forced you to play as Chucky no matter what character you picked at the beginning, which is a bit odd. Either way, this game is pretty fun. You are able to move freely in 8 directions unlike some of the game, and you have to attack floating pieces of wood around the dojo using different attacks, my favorite of which being a cartwheel. The camera will spin around sometimes to better show where the wood is, although sometimes it does take a bit to find one in the corner. After you hit every piece of wood, the piles that it forms will get up and become wood zombies, which you have to destroy for a few hits. That's when the minigame ends. This is probably the closest this whole game gets to being a platformer, and it's a good amount of dumb fun. I wish more of the minigames were like this. The next world is Reptile Island, which has more of a carnival game feel to the minigames. The first minigame is Reptile Bumper Cars, which puts you up against 3 other Rugrats you didn't pick before, and the goal in the minigame is to have the most balloons at the end. It controls as you expect. It feels like the right amount of 40 where you feel like you're on ice without it being too hard to control. The balloons will occasionally spawn in the rink in the form of boxes, which you break. Aside from that, it's a basic bumper car minigame you'd expect. Bumpy and the other characters release their balloons, and the best strategy is to get a majority of the balloons and just stall at the timer. It's some dumb fun bumping into other characters. This one isn't bad. The next minigame is Reptile Bumper Tag, and yeah, they're reusing minigame ideas already. For this game, you need to grab balloons that give you pucks, which are basically just a projectile, and you need to hit each of your opponents 3 times each, which are ninjas in this minigame for some reason, and then you win the minigame. This one has some entertainment from being able to hit the opponents, but really isn't that noteworthy. At the end of the day, all the way it serves as being an easy golden ticket. The third and final bumper car based game is Reptile Bumper Hockey, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's the same bumper car controls, but the goal is to knock a puck into the opposite goal. Having the most points at the end will give you the ticket. This is the most awkward and hardest of the minigames. The controls make it hard to be too precise with your shots, although this is all pointless since for some reason you can bump into the opponent instead of balloons, making any actual effort to score goals kinda pointless. The final minigame, that requires you to walk to the edge of the most straight line design map of the game, is a skee ball minigame. You angle your character left and right and press A to throw a ball at a pad level you want and see what slot it lands in. hoping you get enough points to make it to the next round. Sometimes a red ticket will appear, but besides that nothing else changes. My biggest issue with this game is the required points to pass is very little room for error, needing an almost perfect score in round 3. But the turning aiming instead of strafing made trying to aim way more awkward than it needs to be, so I ended up just creating a strategy of getting the best possible score for every ski ball. You just tap left a couple times and shoot the ski ball at max power, and most of the time you get 100 points. I do not like this minigame very much. The next world is Ooey Gooey World, which is a dark, gross swamp-like cave area, which is odd since the rest of the areas in this game are like actual theme park attractions that could actually exist. But here is this one that decides to be different for some reason. The minigames kind of take advantage of this, with the first one, Ooey Collection. This minigame puts you in a bumper car and you have to collect every boon in the area within a time limit. I don't understand what about this minigame really fits in this theme besides it being a cave. This could have just as easily been in the previous world, no problem. Either way, this minigame is surprisingly hard. The time limit is particularly strict, and if you get the moons in a bad order or forget to hit one, then there's a high chance that you'll fail this one. So it ended up taking me quite a few tries to complete this one. Aside from that, there isn't much else to talk about. This one is pretty basic. The next minigame in another bumper car game is Start the Music. There are several animal things around the area, and when you bump into them they start playing some music, and a music note appears on the screen. And you have to have them all activated at once in order to complete the minigame. The problem with this minigame is I have no idea how to do that at all. I activate one animal, and by the time I hit 4 of them, the first one just stops. I'm not sure whether or not there's a specific order the game wants you to complete these in, or if there's a certain distance you must remain in, but I wasn't able to complete this one. The in-game instructions don't give you much to work with, and I had no patience to restart the minigame several times just to deal with the trial and error of it. This minigame is not very good in my opinion, and those are the only 2 minigames in this whole area. Did they really have no possible ideas left for what to fill the area with? I guess having twisting, confusing corridors and random buildings to do nothing was more important. Next we have the final world, Golf Park. Like its namesake, the main minigame in this area is mini golf, which is a feature that apparently every PS1 era Rugrats game just had to have by law. Search for Reptile had it, Studio Tour had it, and this game has it. Maybe the dev team was just so impressed by how Search for Reptile handled this golf game they decided it would fit. As for the golf game itself, it functions well enough for a PS1 game. The physics work well enough, and you have plenty of options how to angle the ball. The only issue I had on that front was objects physically getting in the way of the camera so I couldn't see where I was aiming, which only happened once. This was the point of the game where I tried moving with the D-pad and actually discovered it was significantly easier to control, which made collecting the red tickets scattered around the holes much easier than before. The actual biggest issue with this minigame is the ridiculous length of the minigame itself. It is a 9-hole game of minigolf, all for 1 golden ticket, meaning you have to spend like 20 minutes completing every hole just for the same reward you would have gone for doing anything else. The holes themselves aren't bad, but it doesn't matter in the end where you have to do so many of them in a row. It's not even like it's more fun, it's just as tedious as everything else, if not worse. If you happen to not get par on every hole, you get nothing as a reward. All of your effort is wasted. Oh, but if you score par on the hole, you get 1 red ticket. So worth it when I can find several scattered in each hole, but thanks I guess. This might actually be the worst minigame just because of how ungodly boring it is. There aren't even any cool secrets like the explorable pyramid that exists in Search for Reptile. And Search for Reptile isn't even an amazing game or anything, but clearly had more effort put into it than this.
Want to know the best part? This is the only minigame in Golfland. At all.
I know it's called Golfland and it would be odd to have more than 1 minigame in it, but that means out of the 5 worlds, 3 of them have 2 minigames or less, which is simply insulting in a minigame collection like this. Meaning you'll likely not get all your golden tickets for the minigames either because you get bored like I did, or you don't want to go through trouble of perfecting some of the games just for every tickets, or just hate certain minigames. Well, in Golf Island, there exists a section that is off limits, and if you go through it, you can enter a warehouse. This opens up into a room where you see the Reptile mech and a jungle gym of boxes that you get to kind of platform on in the most vague sense in order to collect some red tickets. The Reptile mech is near the panel where you use the Reptile helmet. But what's also in this area is the other Rugrat characters, who presumably stuck into this area like us. When you walk near them, they tell you of certain objects that they want, which also happen to be in the ticket shop from before. So if you buy and return your object that they request, they will give you a golden ticket. So you'll likely find yourself going out of your way to grab red tickets in the main hub areas than you would otherwise, since these objects cost a lot of red tickets. You can get a few red tickets through replaying the minigames like I mentioned, but it's still fairly tedious to get. This is made even more annoying since the ticket booth is only in Euro Reptile Land, so if you want to buy something, you have to waste time pointlessly backtracking. But you find yourself doing it anyway, since it's either grinding for red tickets or trying to beat one of the few minigames left that you will likely despise. But not everything in the shop is a toy or puzzle piece that is actually what you want, and you'll need to pay attention. For example, if you buy a telescope, all you get is some low resolution promotional art for the movie. Great, sure I'm glad I spent red tickets on this. Other objects are actually used to access specific minigames that weren't accessible beforehand. The only one I bothered getting was the frog, which activates a minigame in the world I enjoyed the most, which was the Ninja World. But little did I know what this minigame would entail. You play as a frog in a pond, sitting on a lily pad. Your only control options are rotating left to right and sticking out your tongue to catch bugs. Rotating the lily pad is extremely loose, and the lack of any kind of cursor or obvious visual cue for where the tongue is going to stick out besides the frog's face makes aiming the tongue really awkward. During the first round, it isn't that big of a deal, you just need to catch every bug, no problem there. There are several different types of bugs to catch, the butterfly being the easiest, but then there's the dragonfly and bee, which are a little harder to catch due to being smaller. Then there's a fly, which requires a lot more precision to hit, since you really need to be on spot in order to catch it. And the harder to catch, the more points you get. During the second round, they introduce a fat bee enemy that if you eat it, you'll be stunned for a few seconds, which adds a bit more strategy since you need to avoid it so you don't miss bugs. Some of the bugs are spawning at the same time as the fat bees, so you need to be able to catch them quickly before the fat bee spawns, so you have a harder time catching it. This round is obviously more harder, but you should be able to catch enough bugs to pass fairly easily. But round 3 is absolutely insane. They introduced a new bug type with a blue fat bug that requires you to hit it twice in order to catch. But they also decided to spawn several different types of bugs extremely close to one another, meaning you also need to be way more precise, way more quickly, otherwise you'll miss some. Then they also decided to spawn bugs that are practically inside the fat bees the whole time. And you can't wait to catch them since the game is still spawning every bug. So you need to either catch the bugs right away when they spawn so the fat bee doesn't get in your way. And you can't eat the fat bee otherwise you lose every bugs you need to catch since the point threshold requires you to be almost perfect. You require the master skin completely if you want a chance to complete it due to how unforgiving it is. The frog is 80 whole red tickets, so you need to beat it. You don't want the purchase to go to waste. This minigame was so hard and took so many tries that by the time I finally finished it, I'd beaten the whole minigame with a perfect score. And no, I did not perfect the bonus round for a second golden ticket. So now that you've tortured yourself and grinded for enough red tickets to finally get all 16 golden tickets required to finally face off against the snail, you buy the helmet and head off to the warehouse and finally activate the panel. You are treated to the final minigame, Reptile vs Robo Snail. This is a fight between equals. You and Robo Snail have the same controls and attacks. You control Reptile, your tank controls around the area, and you can shoot fireballs. You're limited to 4 at a time unless you collect more by walking into a crate. You can hop left to right by using the shoulder buttons, which are really only useful for quickly dodging shots or getting behind cover. But the cooldown for it makes it mostly useless since you have a better chance of dodging the shots just by trying to hobble away from them. There is a melee attack that is actually useless since you have a high chance of getting shot just by getting close to him. And even if you do, just spamming the melee button will get you absolutely destroyed within seconds. Although most actions you do get you destroyed since Robo Snail seems to have an infinite supply of projectile attacks. So as you are trying to desperately run away and grab more fireballs, there's a high chance you get hit and lose a large chunk of your health. One reason why this minigame is so difficult is because your only real defense is the arch in the middle of the arena, since Robo Snail has hyper laser accuracy and if you hesitate for even a second in its sights, you'll get your health demolished. In fact, I kept dying and I wasn't quite sure how I'd even beat this boss since it was so brutal. Then I ended up just giving up and resorting to baby spamming tactics, where I shot every fireball once and ran away to grab more, then repeated. Well, believe it or not, after a few tries I actually managed to win the fight. Afterward, it fades out as your character in a helmet stands in victory as the static in T-posing princess floats over to your player.
I guess this is when the budget went out.
At least we get to see a pretty neat animation of Chucky and Reptile jumping in victory as the credits go over the screen. Then it tells you to beat the game on a harder difficulty level. Yeah, I think I'll pass. Rugrats in Paris, the movie, the game, the torture, is one slog of a game to get through. A lot of the minigames are incredibly basic, and even the ones that are kinda fun are outweighed by the amount of tedious and downright bad ones. And the difficulty and tedium that comes with getting some of the golden tickets, mixed with the red ticket grinding needed for the buyable objects, and the horrible slow and garbage tank control movement in the hubs, make a short game even more obnoxious to play, since every action feels like an hour-long chore. I really had to force myself to get the final few golden tickets required just to complete the game. I couldn't even imagine trying to 100% this game. There is a multiplayer mode I didn't really talk about, where if you connect multiple controllers, you can play some of the minigames with someone else, but it doesn't really change much. And even then, it's not even simultaneous, you have to take turns. It's an insult that this game and Rugrats Scavenger Hunt are the only 2 Rugrats games in the N64 as far as I'm aware. In fact, Rugrats Treasure Hunt was just a board game with no minigames in sight. So why didn't they just take that show of a game and combine it with this one? At least then you would have something somewhat worth playing.
But as it stands, do not buy this game. It's one of the most lazy cash grab video games I've ever played. Even complete trash like Strike Extra Large has some ambition. And then the Misadventures was better than this. I can't believe there's a $20 sticker on this. I really hope this game isn't worth that much nowadays. Either way, this is the end of the video. I don't know if I have any ending jokes for this, so if I don't come up with one, I'll either come up with one ending or just, I don't know, YouTube poop the end of the video or something. You'll see, I suppose.